We do not mean that Israel has the right to retain the territories they conquered from the Arab world, like the Gaza Strip, the Golan Heights, and the West Bank. We don't agree with that. Those territories should be returned to the Arab people.
In a disputed land that has faced numerous massacres since the end of World War II because of its history and politics, it has a population that existed there since time immemorial, and in this video I will introduce you to the indigenous people of Palestine and the territories that Israel occupies today. So let's start with the meaning of indigenous, and in this case people. Indigenous people means that people who inhabit or exist in a land from the earliest time or from before the arrival of colonists. So that is the literal meaning of the word indigenous. And regardless if you are pro-Palestine or pro-Israel, the land of Palestine was inhabited by numerous empires such as the Israelites, Philistines, Assyrians, Babylonians, and Persians, together with the Greeks, the Romans, and the Muslims. And these empires came and go, but before the occupying empires, the territory had its indigenous people spanning way back to the Neolithic times. And its descendants are alive till this day. So stick till the end if you are open-minded on learning the indigenous people that called Palestine home. I'm going to show you the Palestinians of the Neolithic times, the ancient period, the Middle Ages, and the modern ages, so that you could understand the present-day conflict between Israel and Palestine and why the Palestinians do not give up after countless massacres. In Neolithic Palestine, it was inhabited by this group of hunter-gatherers who one day discovered that they could tame wild crops and animals. And in the Neolithic Levant, these people are known as the Natufians or the Levant farmer. The Natufians began to share their revolutionary method of survival to the Anatolian farmer, which is farming. And because of this revolution, these two groups began to populate and expand their territories, and in the case of the Natufians, they populated the Gulf, North Africa, and Northeastern Africa and intermarried with the locals and thus created the modern Afro-Asiatic ethnicities that we see today. And the Anatolian farmer, they expanded to Southern Europe and North Africa and intermarried with the locals over there. So, back to the land of Palestine. These two groups began to interact with each other and end up intermarrying and gave rise to a group of people known as the Canaanites. So, the Canaanites were a group of ancient people who lived in the Levant, which is a region located in Eastern Mediterranean that includes modern-day Israel, Palestine, Lebanon, Jordan, and Syria. The Canaanites were one of the major cultural groups in that region during the Bronze Age, which is approximately 33,000 BCE to 12,000 BCE. Throughout the Bronze Age, the Canaanites began to become diverse. Throughout time, the Canaanites in Lebanon became the Phoenician or the Tyre, and the Canaanites of Palestine became the Philistine, the Megiddo, the Jerichos, and in Syria, the Ugarit. And before the emergence of Judaism, the Canaanites had a rich, diverse cultural and historical legacy. The Canaanites were known for their advanced civilization, which included urban centers, sophisticated agriculture, and a thriving trade network that spanned the ancient Near East. The Canaanites established extensive trade network that connected the Levant with other regions of the ancient world, including Egypt, Mesopotamia, the Himyar, and the Aegean. The Canaanites had a complex religious system which included the worship of a pantheon of gods and goddesses. Each city-state had its own patron deity, and religious practice varied from region to region. The Canaanites also had a system of writing which they used to record their religious beliefs, trade transactions, and other important information. The Canaanites were eventually conquered and assimilated by other people, including the Israelites. The Israelites emerged from among the Canaanite population in the early Iron Age, and they adopted many elements of Canaanite culture, including their language, religious beliefs, and artistic traditions. And we must be wondering, what about the Jews? Are the Jews the Canaanites who accepted Judaism, or it's something else? Well, according to their religious text, Ibrahim alayhi salam and his wife Sarah, who were both from Babylon, gave birth to Isaac or Ishaq, in which he is the founder of an identity known as the Israelites. And his lineage was continued by his son Yaqub or Jacob. And the Israelites, after the Exodus, wandered the desert for 40 years before entering the land of Canaan, which God has promised to them as their homeland. The Israelites then conquered the land and established the kingdom of Israel with King David and his son, King Solomon or Suleiman, who was one of the most famous rulers of all time. And according to my religious belief, he could speak to animals and command the wind, and together he can command the jinns. And after some time, the kingdom of Israel was conquered by foreign powers, who are the Assyrians, in the 8th century BCE, and many of the Israelites were exiled from the region and destroyed the first temple in Jerusalem. After the Babylonian exile, the Jews returned to their homeland and rebuilt the temple in Jerusalem. And the Persians later conquered the region and allowed the Jews to return to rebuild their temple. The Greeks under Alexander the Great also conquered the region, and the Hellenistic period brought significant cultural and intellectual development to the Palestine. And then the Romans conquered the region in 63 BCE, and they established a province of Judea with Jerusalem as its capital. The Romans also destroyed the Second Temple in Jerusalem in 70 CE, leading to the mass Jewish diaspora we see around the world. So, till this time, remember that the Palestinians are Canaanite in origin. They're just being conquered here and there. Empires come and go, and the Palestinians in the Middle Ages were ruled by a number of different empires and kingdoms, including the Byzantine and the Islamic Caliphate and the Crusader states and the Mamluk Empire. And after the Rashidun conquest of the region in the 7th century CE, Palestine became part of the Islamic Caliphate and was ruled by a succession of Muslim dynasties. During this period, Jerusalem became an important center of Islamic pilgrimage and scholarship, and the Dome of the Rocks and Al-Aqsa Mosque were built on the Temple Mount. And in the 11th century CE, the Crusaders invaded Palestine and established several Crusader states in the region, including the Kingdom of Jerusalem. The Crusaders ruled the region for nearly a century until they were defeated by the Ugaizid Muslim armies under Salahuddin al-Ayyubi in the late 12th century CE. After the Crusaders were kicked out from the region, Palestine became part of the Ayyubid Empire, which was ruled by Salahuddin and his descendants. The Ayyubids were then succeeded by the Mamluk Empire, which established its capital in Cairo and ruled over Palestine for several centuries. And during the Mamluk period, Palestine continued to be an important center of Islamic scholarship and culture. Several important religious buildings were constructed during this time, including the Al-Aqsa Mosque and Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. And in the 16th century CE, Palestine became part of the Ottoman Empire, which ruled over the region until the end of World War I. During the Ottoman period, Palestine was part of the Vilayet of Syria and was governed from Damascus. The Ottomans built several important structures in Palestine, including the Jaffa Clock Tower and the Ottoman Railway, which connected Palestine with other parts of the Ottoman Empire. And throughout the Middle Ages, Palestine was a region of great cultural and religious diversity, with Jews, Christians, and Muslims living side by side until disaster happened, World War I. After World War I, Palestine was placed under British mandate by the League of Nations. The British administration of Palestine was characterized by tension between the Jewish and Arab population, which eventually led to violent clashes and uprising. In 1947, the United Nations voted to partition Palestine into two states, one for the Jews and one for the Arabs. The Jewish community accepted the plan, but the Arab community rejected it. Because why should the people who left the area in the Bronze Age have the right and authority to claim it? Because Palestine itself was densely populated with its indigenous people, who are the Palestinians, whose ancestors lived there and they are indigenous to the area. And this led to the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. Israel declared its independence in May 1948, and neighboring Arab countries invaded in support of Palestine. So Israel, backed by their ultimate sugar daddy, which is America, in which it is an industrial powerhouse fresh from war, won. And thus more than 700,000 Palestinians were forced to flee or were expelled from their homes and villages and became refugees, in which many Palestinian towns and villages were destroyed and repopulated by the Jewish immigrants till this day. And in the Nakba, countless massacres took place, and countless Palestinian men, women, and children were slaughtered in the most heinous crimes carried out by Zionist forces. The Nakba had a profound impact on the Palestinian people, who lost their homes, their land, and their way of life. It remains a deeply traumatic event in their collective memory and continues to shape their struggle for justice and for the right to return to their indigenous homeland. So, my conclusion is this: the land of Palestine belongs to the Palestinians. The Palestinian people are the descendants of the Canaanites, because the Canaanite gene pool is still the same. No Arab or Roman or other people who conquered the area replaced the indigenous gene pool of the Palestinians till this day. On the other hand, I actually support a Jewish state. They could have bought a piece of land in Texas or any other territory in North America or South America or Australia. They won't be as paranoid as they are today, killing children day in, day out. And the Palestinians actually are entitled to their ancestral homeland. They have the authority and everything to claim their indigenous lands, which is the land of their ancestors, the Canaanites, just like the Jordanians in Jordan and the Lebanese in Lebanon. They are all Canaanites in origin, and now they are Arabs, linguistically and culturally. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you have any opinions, please comment down and subscribe to my channel. It will help this channel to grow. Thank you very much, and I will see you next time.